Okay, scholars. uh, Boy, this is a great book, and I wish we could. Boy, we'd have fun chatting with this one. We should be out on a sailboat, just going through this, anchored somewhere on some island, talking our way through this every paragraph of this book. It's a powerful book. So, want to just Stephen Shapin. Born 1943, getting old, and this social history of truth. This is a powerful book. Civility and Science in 17th Century England. This book on Boyle that was before this really set him aside because he says it was a big. That science is not something that you go, oh wow, we proved something. No, man, it's actually something socially constructed. There's a sociology to knowledge, and you can get at knowledge in a number of ways. And the scientific revolution, as we'll talk about it, sort of picked a road, and we have been sort of way overconfident in it, and so he starts to undermine it. So this is the idea of like postmodernism. There's the modern world, which is overly confident, and then he's part of the postmodern movement. But he's not like just throwing stuff out and come up with some crazy, whatever. My experience was that when I was working on a project with logic and stuff in the 17th century, I was trying to work through, and I read this book and I go, oh my goodness, this gives the framework of exactly what I'm talking about with Boyle and the scientific revolution. So it's really good stuff, and very important. As you can see, he wins all these awards. Now this is a collection. It's a great title. All right, never pure. Science is never pure. This is the great postmodern notion, and is that we can't be sort of just so easily convinced of anything, and so nothing is pure. Historical studies of science as if it was produced by people with bodies situated in time, space, culture, and society, and struggling for credibility and authority. So there's this struggle for credibility and authority, and that's the great thing about this, and what we want to talk about with this scientific revolution book is that we don't just sort of turn on the light and create the enlightenment. And many people, especially at universities, are just way overconfident that boom, this is obvious. Well, no, it's not obvious, and it may be obvious to you because of who you are, how you're situated, what your time and space is, where the university is at right. The universities themselves swing and roll through history as to how they think. This is the European intellectual class. We will get to the creation of the University of Berlin later on. We really live in these 19th century universities, but they are built upon a sort of overconfidence in the scientific, what they call sort of the scientific revolution. And so let's jump into this, all right? Sound knowledge, explain how sound knowledge is generated, how the process works, and who takes part in that process. You have to have a certain, they didn't cast off authority. There's a certain authority that certain authority structure that they then chose to use. Okay, let me just talk about this first chapter here and try and make some sense of it. And this is the kind of stuff I just want to point out to you as you're reading so that you can get the most out of the book, okay? First of all, I love this first sentence, man. There is no such thing as a scientific revolution. And this is a book about it. You gotta love that. Now, some time ago, when the academic world offered more certainty and more comforts. That's this modernist age. That's this age up through the 1960s and on into the 1970s when, when people are just so dang overconfident that they're science is just going to save us and stuff. Okay? And then then he says, it was a moment in which the world became modern. This was the idea of progress. Okay? Well, what he does is says, okay, this book, let's get down here. This book over here, there's an established place for accounts of the scientific revolution in Western liberal curriculum. Yes, there is a scientific revolution. We just got to understand it better. And this book is an attempt to fill that space economically. It's just a short book, and to invite further curiosity about the making of early modern science. This is exactly what our class is about. We're like hop, skipping, and jumping through all of European intellectual history. So we can just give you a little bits and pieces, but I hope you think about this stuff for the rest of your lives, Okay, so the big issue then to start with is, what's known, and this is where there is a great critique of the past, especially the Aristotelian past, this notion of a human-centered universe. And the human-centered universe is not simply, that the Earth is at the center, but the common sense and the, infinity and this sort of stuff. Just we think everything has a purpose, and this is like if you go back and read Boethius again. Boethius is a great example of someone who, frankly, I agree with more than, that's why I'm not so modern, is that in a postmodern way, Boethius is really sort of better than modern. But he does have a world machine sort of notion, a idea that everything is held together by purpose. He talks about the purpose of flames is to rise. The purpose of rocks is to hold together. That's what Boethius talks about. And so what's going to happen in the scientific revolution is we stop trying to talk about common sense and purpose as if they were pure guides, as always right. No, common sense and purpose don't always lead us into the best way to understand things. What is really adopted is that, what Boethius has talked about with that machine is to really put that machine idea on steroids, put it on a clock and that sort of stuff. And then the notion that great confidence. In some ways, the scientific revolution makes us more human-centered because humans become more confident that they themselves can understand a wholly intelligible universe. Okay, and so this is this great statement by Max Weber, and you'll hear it in a number of contexts. It's a very interesting idea that basically the scientific revolution disenchanted the universe. Well, as we'll talk about here in a second, that disenchantment didn't really happen in the scientific revolution, nor does it really work as an idea of disenchantment, because this clock mentality just doesn't work itself, So, where you go along, keep reading this stuff, because this is great stuff. It's really good. And then you work down to mathematization of qualities. Basically Aristotle said you got to keep your quantities as quantities, your qualities as qualities, and you cannot measure qualities. How much is yellow? But the thing is this is what the scientific revolution is really great at, and he doesn't deal much with it, but today, statistics and things like this, these are like huge as means for us to get at knowledge. This whole disease thing that's going on right now, there's no sort of certainty science. No, when they say the science says, that's when you start saying, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Because what's going on is they're using statistical models. They debate, and statistical models are highly debatable about like what data you're using, how you get your data, all that sort of stuff. So mathematization is a great tool, wonderful, but people got overconfident in it, and he wants to point that out. And he talks about Descartes, and these guys all get into really interesting stuff, with this measuring qualities. But then the chapter ends with this discussion between Leibniz and Newton, which is a sort of key discussion, because, and I love what, you don't see this so often in the textbooks, but this is a great truth about Newton. Newton did not create a Newtonian universe. Newton did not create sort of a watchmaker universe like you'll often read. What you get is Newton reintroduces the occult. Because Newton is committed to mathematics, mathematics is ultimately founded on all sorts of spiritual assumptions and ideas that are just out there. So because mathematics becomes Newton's major focus, then what you have here is Leibniz says he is abandoning the dream of a mechanical universe. It's Newton who abandoned a mechanical universe. This is why Newton is fascinating. And then so you go to this up here, which is a great last statement. Okay, so accordingly there can be no facile generalization, no simple, no superficial generalization about the Newtonian achievement. Okay, whether Newton culminated the mechanical philosophy, but then he goes down here, late 17th and early 17th century, debated just those points about the proper understanding of Newton's achievements. Okay, and so too we historians do today, and many present day scientists. Okay, so this sets up the book. What's known? We're pulling away from a whole bunch of things. Is it a revolution? Well, some things change, some things don't, some things. Has it really disenchanted the universe? Well, maybe not. At least not in this way. Mathematics enchants our method, but not necessarily the way it had been in the past. And then one of the things that we skipped in there is this notion of a common sense universe that, I forgot what I was going to say. But yeah, that's basically it. And see here, if we were chatting, we could flip back and forth in these chapters and analyze each of these sentences, because they're packed. It's a hard read. It's not an easy read. But boy, it's good stuff. All right, I will come back to you and we will talk about chapters, the two other chapters.